welcome.
The Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community is a regulatory science initiative that aims to facilitate innovations in pathology, as well as advance safety and effectiveness evaluation. The PI Collaborative Community aims to harmonise approaches to speed delivery to patients through collaboration in the pre-competitive space. The PIcc is open to all stakeholders, public or private, including but not limited to academia, industry, healthcare providers, patients, and advocacy groups. Meetings of this kind are an example of lawful activity under federal antitrust law, because the focus of the meeting is on government action or policy, including the industry's responses or positions taken with respect thereto. However, antitrust monitoring is needed for companies' own protection, since they are direct competitors meeting together. These meetings need to stay within protected subject matters and need to be monitored so that they do not stray off into inappropriate areas, such as pricing and price terms, sales and service territories for particular products, customers and customer territories, each company's individual decisions regarding selection of suppliers or customers, marketing plans and especially future marketing plans or new product offerings, other proprietary or competitively sensitive information. Today's meeting will follow the written agenda, and there will be no discussion of pricing or other prohibited topics. If the discussion veers into those topics, we will terminate the discussion. If you have any questions or concerns about the propriety of the discussion, please raise it immediately, and we will take a break to determine how best to proceed. The Medical Device Innovation Consortium acts as the formal convener, and we will follow their conflict of interest policy. For additional information, we defer to our Code of Conduct and our website, www.pathologyinnovationcc.org. We look forward to moving the field forward.
All right. Welcome, everybody. How's everyone doing? I see Brandon, Danny, Shavi. Victor is here. Kevin is here. Hey, great seeing you all. Thank you for taking the time. All right. We have a relatively packed agenda, so I get started right away. Kind of separated the update into, several different sections. First, the sort of regulatory, then patient advocacy, then some science, and then some updates. And then we have probably at least 10 minutes to discuss certain things. Ulla, as always, great work in running the show, and let's get started. So the first quick pointer is something coming from a few US executive branch sections. In this case, OIRA or OIRA, which is actually a section, a part of the White House Office of Management and Budget. And in collaboration with the FDA, something is moving forward that has been in the works for, at least to my knowledge, since 2016. This is referred to as the Quality Management System Harmonization Plan. And if you look on the right side, you see ISO 13485 in a version of 2016. And that is proposed or has been proposed for a long time by the International Medical Device Regulators Forum, or IMDRF, and numerous other people. And I just wanted to make a quick note. A lot of the things that we're discussing here touch upon quality, and a lot of the standard operating procedures, quality management system is, of course, an integral part of that. So if you haven't seen this, please make a quick note. And I think Ulla is pasting some of the documents and information material in the chat. That was basically just a quick pointer to something that is moving forward. Next slide, maybe. This is something that I believe Brandon has briefly introduced in the last meeting, and I handed over to him to briefly discuss this, but just quickly, you see there's a few emails and contacts on this slide, and this is quite an interesting opportunity and a funding mechanism for certain research and or scientific endeavors in the field of regulatory science in and around the Division of Imaging, Diagnostics and Software Reliability, also known as DITSER. Brandon, do you want to maybe say a few words about this?
Yeah, you mentioned funding. We're not a funding agency, let's be clear on that. We're actually using a mechanism that we use to bring in fellows. And so it's normally a FDA to one fellow situation, but we are kind of expanding that to maybe be and it's usually at just out of their PhD, or maybe they're a master's student or something like that. It's usually what we target, but we are expanding this to maybe include a professor so that we can get more higher level collaborations and teams kind of working in our advantage. And I didn't announce it here because it's really not real funding, and we wanted to kind of build on some collaborations we already had, and so we just tried to make some of those groups aware, but I ultimately I'll keep this team abreast of the kind of collaborations we create so that we can piggyback on that if other groups. I mean, that's how the whole HTT project runs. Is there was a project and people thought it had value, and people are volunteering their time. Really, most everything in that project is unfunded except for me and some of the fellows that I get at the agency. So that's kind of the model, so that's what that's about.
Perfect. So I also didn't mean to imply that there's funding. I just wanted to say that there is regulatory science going on inside the FDA, and active reach out is happening. Yep, let's move on. This is probably something that many of you have seen. So there's still some COVID sprinkled in between these regulatory efforts here. And one thing that is moving forward is the plan to transition away from emergency use authorization to more permanent regulatory guidance regarding COVID diagnostics. If you haven't been in this seminar, it's already on the website. We're thousands of people on this. It's a very intricate topic, but I think overall positive because it shows that we're moving away from the emergency state regarding COVID, and we're moving more to a permanent regulatory framework. So if you haven't seen this, quick pointer to that. The next one is also a quick shout out and thanks to the agency. The annual report from CDRH, so the Center for Device and Radiological Health, came out for 2021. Of course, now it's 2022, but there's the annual report from last year, and that is pasted in the chat, and PIcc is mentioned again, and there's a whole collaborative communities section in there that again underscores the importance of networking with and among the FDA collaborators. So quick shout outs and a smiley, of course. The next one is something that relates to some of the projects that are on the way, a bit related to privacy, a bit probably payers, the payer subgroup. So there's a No Surprise Act, or NSA, not to be confused with another government agency under that same abbreviation. And this was signed into law as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. We have mentioned this before briefly. Regarding funding related to certain information 21st Century Cure Act initiatives. However, here this is something you can see the Federal Register entry, and that is the surprise billing, so-called Part 1. So in quick words, no patient should receive an undue high or unknown priced bill. Of course, that's a huge endeavor. And many of these provisions are in effect since January 1st. It's of course a very, very complicated topic. And the AMA has prepared a very fantastic document called the Implementation of the No Surprise Act, which is kind of a toolkit for physicians. So this is not necessarily related to pathology alone or digital pathology, but more related to the entire payer landscape. And I wanted to share this because a lot of people, including many of the patient organizations and advocacy groups, find this a very important move forward on the legislative side. And then, of course, the question comes, how can we implement this and what would that look like, you know, from a practical perspective? So there's a pointer. Maybe move on. All right, here's the bad news. So sorry about that, but our iSpore abstract was not accepted. Meh, meh, meh. So sad, I'm very sorry, but we won't give up, of course. The idea of a tokenization model is appealing to many. So if you move forward, so the privacy pilot has two things to tackle now or work on. One is that there's a new Health Data Use and Privacy Commission Act that has been prepared, and several professional organizations have supported this. So this is a larger scale bill tackling some of the key issues, including the discrepant frameworks related to state level privacy law, as well as GDPR versus, you know, health privacy governance, data governance in the US. So we have the support letter that was from February 9th, as well as the currently submitted draft that went to Congress, in case you're interested in that. And then similarly, also related to our work with iSpore is on the next slide, which is an organization. They're called Commonwealth Health Alliance, and they aim to enable what we proposed in the iSpore abstract. And for those who are aware of what, you know, Josie and Trappen and team in the privacy pilot had proposed, one of their abstract symbols illustrated here on the right reminds us all of the tokenization model that was proposed. And one of the questions, if you're not familiar with this Commonwealth Health Alliance, was whether we want to reach out. Of course, you know, this is being tackled by the privacy pilot, but basically a shout out in case someone is interested in this topic and or wants to join. Please, you know, reach out to Josie and Trappen and or the privacy pilot project group via our website, and then we can probably engage with them. It's a, I think, very meaningful initiative that they set up, and they seem to have the technical skills to allow and or contribute. I don't know, Joe, I see you on the call. Fascinating, right? Very similar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we shall reach out and you know, report back. Next
Can I ask
topic.
a question?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's Mike Ribben over at MD Anderson.
Hi, Mike.
You know, I'm pretty familiar with the Commonwealth. It was sort of a small vendor approach led by Cerner, if you can call them a small vendor. But it was sort of an attack against the Epic Care Everywhere system. So it was an idea that, you know, that they were going to create this interoperability using Commonwealth with the vendors that weren't part of Epic's Care Everywhere system. And I'm just wondering how relevant this Commonwealth initiative will be, since the ONC seems to be spearheading their interoperability through the TEFCA and other initiatives. And I just don't know how valuable it is at this point to reach out to them if the ONC is going to spearhead it through their Qualified Health Information Network and FHIR approach.
Yeah, so we didn't have a preconceived notion of saying whether this is effective or not, but it was more that they shared the same sort of incentives. And I think it's probably a fair assessment that most healthcare networks are not yet FHIR compliant, although that's of course incentivized through, you know, several acts. I think it could be synergistic. I don't have good contacts to, you know, the high level, you know, other initiatives. If you're aware, it would be great to also reach out to those. That was just sort of an initial contact. So this was by no means intended to be exclusive with Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is the Commonwealth one is sort of vendor initiated, and the ONC one is sort of federal government initiated.
So what, I don't know if that generally applies. Typically, no matter how small, those who tackle problems sort of from a practical level, even if it's, you know, a vendor or whoever, at least they probably learned something, even if that failed, or, you know, fail early is usually a good approach. I understand what the bigger level, let's call it, intentions are, but how to realize that, I think, is very tricky. So one of the things that I believe, you know, Joe and the privacy pilot, when we proposed this tokenization model, was where could we start? Who has the technical abilities to do this? And I think those more logistical and operational things I haven't seen being tackled by any of those bigger initiatives. But open to other suggestions. Do you know someone who we could also reach out to, Mike?
No, not yet, but I'd be happy to work with you and Joe on this.
That would be awesome. No, I mean, this is exactly why we're presenting this, to have, you know, people like yourself who know more about the context really trying to make it happen. All right. Yeah, I just see the comment from Joe. We haven't figured the right contact to move the needle. I think that's a perfect way of putting it. All right. Thank you for pushing this, Ola. I know we have a lot of slides. Next one here, this beautiful report, I think 84 pages, very densely written, is something, it's, I think, related but independent of the Cancer Moonshot. And as you all know, President Biden is very much interested in moving the needle regarding cancer research. So he has, as many presidents do, allocated some of their discretionary funds to create something called the President's Cancer Panel. And this President's Cancer Panel consists of 3 people, one chairperson, John Williams, who's a breast cancer surgeon, and then several other members that have solicited opinions regarding existing and really, I don't know, difficult to close gaps in cancer screening specifically. Now, a lot of the pathology applications that we're talking about are about our screening application. So I wanted to give a pointer to this. It's an excellent and very, very densely written report. I made it to about page 50. And there are things tackled in there that are also not directly related to cancer, but the adjunct professions. There's a lot of content there. So please take a look. Mike, you raised your hand. Or was this from before?
Sorry, it was from before. Let me take it down.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So if you haven't seen this, please take a look. It's a fantastic thing, and there's acknowledgement to numerous you know, key institutions. Okay, brief section on patient advocacy. We're in contact with the Sepsis Patient Advocacy Foundation and help them get started, but there's 2 other things that I wanted to briefly mention. One is, you know, our first advocacy group that was representing patient advocacy in PIcc was Friends of Cancer Research. And yesterday was I think a very interesting seminar regarding expediting development of diagnostics for therapies targeting rare biomarkers or indications. So this is about patient access. And 2 of the sponsors of the Valid Act presented sort of the scope and idea of the Valid Act. And one of the exceptions is rare biomarkers, so orphan disease, and how to maintain LDTs under a potential regulatory oversight over laboratory developed tests. And this is a collaboration between industry, the regulator, and patient advocacy. And if you move to the next slide, one element that I'm, I don't know, very proud of, and I have been part of this group, is that we try to narrow down under this multi-stakeholder concept a proposed minimum requirements to support something for diseases as rare as some of the, you know, markers or biomarkers that we screen for. Now, you will not believe how difficult it is to have a multi-stakeholder community come up with numbers. And I know that this is not FDA approved, so please do not take this as the ground truth. But what's written down here is some of the proposed minimum requirements that a lot of trial sponsors for companion diagnostics would consider wishful. And you see that there's something like 6 known positives and negatives. Of course, we're talking orphan disease here. So this is by no means as if you should only test 30 biomarker negative samples, etc. But please take a look at the white paper. I think it is a great starting point for something that is hopefully going to be enabling and balancing sort of risk versus benefit. So if you haven't seen this, I think the recording will come out soon, and the white paper is in the chat, I believe. Okay, next one. Ulla and I have continued to engage with Apia, that's the Anatomical Pathology Patient Interest Association. And here we have some great developments. First, I have to say we haven't met the relatively harsh deadline. You see here the dates. We wanted to provide an overview by the 16th. We didn't quite make it, but I wanted to present here that the leadership, I think Angela is on the call. Thank you for joining, Angela. They're really interested in helping us out, or I would say it's a synergy of moving the needle on pre-analytics. So there is a recognition that histotechnology is as integral as scanning as well as AI solutions. And what's being proposed currently, and the time frame hopefully stands, that this Friday is the next Apia board meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't or we weren't able to really consolidate a single project yet. So we have to go back to the drawing board. So, and next week, Wednesday, is that correct, Ulla? Yeah. So this is basically now the following option. We can propose something to Apia, and this interest group would support us, potentially even a multi-site study with significant funding. And it would, however, require us to sit down and come up with one project that we find the stakeholders to agree on and do it. So the review of existing material is basically my homework to you. So please take a look. We have a pre-analytics website that you're all aware of. There are some projects proposed. We will hold a meeting next week, Wednesday. And please take a look at the existing proposals. If not, just click on proposals and submit one. And we will collectively review this next week, Wednesday, and then provide a succinct report to Apia for consideration. Of course, there's no guarantee, but that could be something I believe very, very meaningful. And Angela, of course, thank you for joining, and I hope you forgive us for not making the very harsh timeline. But that was it was an attempt, but can't always make it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Erica was able to join, so he's on here. I know he's at the airport right now.
Perfect. See, that worked. Yes. So it's great. It's great to have more advocates for pre-analytics on the call. Erica, thank you also for joining. I didn't see this.
Great pleasure. Great pleasure.
Thank you. So I believe that there is a meeting of Apia near UseCAP, and we get to that in a second. So if there will be possibly even in-person networking. All right. Before we come to the open discussion, a few pointers. And I think, as you all know, this is the beautiful section of celebrating some of the best work out there. And this is, of course, through emails, etc. So the first work is from Wouter Butten. This is published in Modern Path. It's a little bit older, but there was a question about, is AI better versus, not, or is it helping pathologists, etc. If you haven't seen this paper, check it out. And it's, I think, one of the approaches to demonstrate the added benefit of artificial intelligence solutions. The next paper is a work of art. This is, from Bastien Nguyen and the MSKCC team. This is 25,000 patients sequenced on the Memorial Sloan Kettering platform, published in Cell. And one of the interesting findings here is that the reconstruction of metastatic pattern of disease based on a certain tropism for certain organs figures, I would estimate, took that team of about 60 people probably on the order of 2 years, and that's just my conservative estimate. So it's really an amazing piece, and I know that several of the people on our call that are at MSK have probably contributed in numerous ways to this. So big high five, and it's really amazing. I think it's 25,750 or so patients, which I think, you know, data integration is of course a big challenge. So great work. The next paper is a fantastic visualization story that was published in Cancer Research by the group around Xi and Jonathan Liu. It's an AACR paper that I believe also sets an interesting new standard, where prostate cancer risk stratification is done using a 3D reconstructed deep learning assisted gland analysis. Sounds like a mouthful, but what it is basically reconstructing imaging in the 3D space using deep learning, and then not only doing that, but actually risk stratifying it by cytokeratin, cytoplasm extraction. So this is, I think it's a new approach. You can probably apply this to other organs, and if you haven't seen this paper, please check it out. Next one, change of topics. You see there's the increase in compensation. This is a paper published in JAMA Health Forum by 4 authors that did a large survey across many different US health systems. And what's clear in this study is that certain compensation vectors are created by performance incentives, and some of the results here that suggest that despite value-based reimbursement strategies, that performance is still sort of the key financial driver. So I think this will be very interesting. We will probably have some discussions in the payer subgroup, because what I think is driving AI will of course be the financial sustainability of accounting for it. And this was I think a landmark paper across many different healthcare institutions. Then I don't know, I haven't had a chance to see whether Peter made it to the call, but this is from Peter Bohr. He's in Germany, Aachen, and what he has set up with his team and now published, I think it was in Lancet, is the first report from the German COVID-19 Autopsy Registry, which is really, I don't know, a phenomenal piece of work. You can see here the very detailed, consort diagram of how cases were enrolled and what kind of quality is behind this. To my knowledge, this is really the first full country registry that captures kind of like the population level data. And I don't know, is Peter on the call? I don't know, it's late.
Yeah,
so
I made it badly. Hi,
thank
thanks.
you for staying up late, but it's really
thanks
cool.
for highlighting this. I have to correct you. It's just Lancet Regional Health. It's not the Lancet major journal, but we were anyhow very happy that it showed interest beyond just Germany. And I think we have lots of challenges, but I think this registry really showed to us that we can do science in a different way, and this paper really showed that it really works, and we have 120 colleagues as contributors on the paper. So you might say that's really funny because we have 1,200 autopsies. But I think the most important thing was to bring everyone together to see how it works. And beyond just showing the data, I have to say that what we managed by setting this up, also lots of press work and so on, we managed to change the legislation of the Infectious Protection Act in Germany, which now makes it much easier to do autopsies in pandemics. And that's something what I would never thought of, and it's kind of its impact without factor, but it was really nice. One of the things on that we manage here.
I think that's a perfect example of collaborative efforts, and then 2 is with the appropriate scientific data, you can even move monumental things like German legislation that I find very encouraging. So no, and I mean, we only highlighted here one figure, which is very interesting from a territorial perspective, but I mean, just the age distribution, the subset analysis from first to second to third wave. I mean, if you're interested in understanding that, that's the paper to go to. So no, thank you. Thanks a lot for all your effort. It helps us all. Thank you.
Very happy. I will just add one thing. Since the publication of this paper, I received so many hate emails from Corona non-believers that now I feel like an important researcher, because we are now also being attacked by these people who think it's all just made up. It's very interesting.
No good deed goes unpunished, Peter.
Okay.
No, high five. At least I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. This is a perfect example of what science can produce when it comes to regulation. So big high five. The last paper is a pre-publication, but I think it's noteworthy. This is from a group in, I hope I'm not butchering this, Radbook and Registry in Sweden, and fantastic work illustrating a quality control mechanism for whole slide images through a semantic segmentation of artifacts. So if you see these images on the right, so slide folds, bubbles, folds, scratch marks, and it's a beautiful example. I unfortunately don't know where it was submitted for review. So this is from a pre-publication. I think we can, it's intended to be shared. I'm sure it will be in a good journal. And it's a very interesting approach from a highly productive group. And oh yeah, and one special add-on, a Gallas et al. Paper. This is, I think, is it Nature Machine Intelligence, right? Hot off the press, illustrating several of the efforts that the FDA is undertaking to do research, provide resources, and foster collaboration in response to another paper. And this is a commentary that should appear soon. And it really outlines, some of the efforts, including the HTT project, as well as collaborative communities. Brendan, can we share this yet? Do you know, or is it still?
Let me go to my email and get the link. That's shareable, but not downloadable.
All right.
I don't have the production version myself yet.
It's so hot, it's not even off the press. I mean, exclusively here. All right, now moving forward to some of the upcoming events. This is jointly.
Actually, it looks like it was published today.
Yeah, I don't know if it's available though. Yes.
Yes,
it is.
I'm gonna put the link in. I don't have the PDF yet. They said it's published. The DOI seems to work. So let me get you the link.
All right, so next item here is something that I'm sure many of you will be very interested in, and it's fantastic to have Francesco and Roberto, two people that should be known to this group, presenting jointly between DITSER and the pathology community a topic that's very interesting, and that is, as I'm sure you're all aware, there are a lot of artificial intelligence grant challenges underway. I think last month we presented the publication of the Panda Challenge. I'm sure you heard of the Tiger Challenge. There are many, many different sort of, let's call it, competitions on who and which model works the best. Simply put, one element of that is that rarely is the same data set used for performance comparison. I think in COVID, the FDA orchestrated something like that by sending out certain samples. But what these challenges really produce is sort of a harmonized approach to really assess what performance metrics can be assessed, how should they be assessed. And so this is an interesting topic where Roberto and Francesco will present whether some of these challenges and the data produced within those challenges can be used to drive and or inform regulatory guidances. Brendan, you want to say a few words? What the FDA may think about this or what you think about it.
Well, from an end user of the challenge, you know, we get access to the data and we get to build an algorithm in order to better be able to evaluate algorithms and to understand the components of an algorithm and everything from the color stable normalization or using different what do you call it when you add in extra versions by rotating and otherwise permuting the patches and whatnot. But with Roberto and Francesco, you know, they're already collaborators in the high throughput truthing project, and Roberto's behind the scenes trying to get us some access to the submissions that the challenge will receive. So the actual algorithm outputs, and the challenge is organized where the developers can put 2 submissions a week. So, you know, we have a lot of interest in how many times can you use the same data set to train, and how perverted does the bias get when you continuously try and update where the feedback you get is from one data set. And then also just the variability from the different architectures used to understand algorithm fragility or robustness and just those variability elements. And so if we're successful and we can get some of that behind the scenes access to that kind of data, you know, that will give us a chance to come up with good methods to understand algorithms and to plan on the whole space of continuous learning and figure out some ways to monitor the development and the changing algorithms and assess them, of course.
No, I hope that this will be a lively discussion. So we're proud and happy to host it. I think those are 2 of the experts. I think there will be hopefully some interest from the FDA and hopefully a couple of FDA reviewers present as well. And if you don't know how to get to this, if you are on our website and you go to presentations, you will find it there. And, you know, if you have additional questions, etc., reach out, but that should be, it's probably going to be one of the highlights coming up. Next slide. This is something I know that MDIC, you know, our convener, is very interested in. So certain instruments related to patient-reported outcomes measures are currently being selected. And this is the final guidance. And March 1st is the webinar related to this. So given that all conversations we ever had related to how can we get digital pathology reimbursed tied to one thing, which is outcomes, and a knowledge about the regulatory framework for outcome instruments to measure that might be of interest to those who are interested in trying to get digital pathology reimbursed. So just, I know that that's a mouthful on how this ties together, but I just wanted to give a quick pointer, because these instruments, think about it like this could be tables, frameworks, any kind of outcome measurement. You see here the selection of those which we struggle with, the development of those which we struggle with, the modification of existing ones, and the adaptation is fully aligned. So big shout out to the QAIRA group who have developed that and detailed it in many sessions. I think this would be a webinar to consider in case you have time. All right, one of the last slides is a shout out to UseCAP. So UseCAP moves forward in person, March 19th to 24th, I think LA. The designated meeting will happen on Saturday night, in case you are there in person, 9 p.m. in the Marriott LA Live lobby bar. So this is, of course, an informal meeting. Just stop by and say hi. I don't know, we probably put a whatever rainbow umbrella up or something to indicate where PIcc is. But in case you're traveling and you're there in person, you know, I think there will be a few people there. Some of the vendors I heard from, and they asked whether we have an event We do not have a meeting room. Those are extremely expensive in LA. And we just gonna meet old school at the bar. And I think that is the almost official end of the slide deck. Of course, we will still continue discussing a few things. The next meeting will be March 30th. And I think with that, maybe we can share the slide deck with the group and really try to leave plenty of time for discussion, because there's so much going on that I'm sure some of you would want to make a few points, discussion, and or suggestions.
Well, Joe, I'll at least say that UseCAP picture was the same bar that we met after one of our real first alliance meetings attached to the UseCAP. That was a great experience. And coming up this summer, I guess, would be the 3-year anniversary of our first creation or first origin story of this group at the FDA. It was July of 2019. So, it's really exciting for me that this hasn't fizzled out, and that we get 30 people at a meeting like this once a month, and you're doing a great job pushing information to us. I mean, some of the FDA stuff I hear about from you are first time through my ears, because I'm busy deleting it from my email sometimes, and I appreciate the highlights that you give and the opportunity to share my work here. So bravo to that.
Thank you. Big props to Ulla. I think couldn't do it without her. And to all of you who provide all this input. It's mostly streamlining it. So I know that many of you are active in the various work groups. So again, sort of like a shout out. I think if you're interested in pre-analytics, that's our a big push to really clarify that with a project. So consider joining that. But also the other work groups, please feel free to join again and see. We didn't feature all the projects. I think you probably are aware. Ulla, can you just share the website, how many projects there are right now? That is moving at a rapid pace. We had some discussions about Valid. I know we plan to look at the technical assistance that's provided for the Valid Act, but just the amount of projects that are happening beside the work groups is actually quite impressive. So big shout out to all of you. So thanks for the link. So please take a look at that. And if you want to contribute or feel like you could contribute with some meaningful comments or highly critical comments, just reach out to the various project leads and yeah. Ooh, I see Laura. Laura, how are you?
Hey there, doing good.
Sorry for calling on you, but haven't heard you in a while. Great. Thanks for joining.
Omicron pretty much shut down my daycare for the month of January, so I've just been out of pocket trying to get caught up on everything.
Wow. Hope everyone's okay though.
Everybody's good. Just lots of TV for the toddler.
Let's get on the agenda for March or April, a face-to-face meeting. That's kind of piggybacking on the fact that we had the meeting at the beginning of the pandemic. FDA is actually calling us back. Most everybody's going to have a 1 day a week requirement starting in April, assuming things don't change. Obviously, every time it changes our plans. And they're not willing to talk about travel yet, but I think as soon as they start bringing people into the building, that travel will start opening up too. So I think we should start, as soon as I hear that word, I'd like to try and get us together.
What was it, July 19th, right? That would
be the anniversary date. And right now, I don't think anyone's reserved the big conference room or anything.
You could be the first. Let's do it. Tentatively, of course, you know. Let's not jinx it. Let's first go back. No, but no, it would be great to come back to the agency and really discuss some of the topics that, you know, just sort of review also from the agency what we should focus on. I'm sure Michelle would be very, very impressed to see what we did accomplish. And, you know, MDSC is probably also moving forward with a lot of projects. So other topics, suggestions, ideas, as ripe or unripe as you want.
Yeah, maybe a quick update. When you mentioned I'm MDSC, it's Esther here. I forgot, but I think it's good to mention here, is that with MDSC, PIcc, DPA, we're working together to see if we can get something accomplished with regards to the framework on AI. So that's something that we started to develop, to highlight and address to the MDSC. Next step is that we can hopefully present something to them, to the steering committee, and see where it takes us. But the idea is that we're going to work together as a collaborative community, of course, but with various stakeholders to further develop and fine-tune that framework. Because what we noticed in the past, the framework has good suggestions and is talking about general verification and validation principles. But what we also noticed is that it is mainly focused on the areas that are familiar to FDA at the moment, but not yet really focused to include digital pathology. So we want to give digital pathology a voice there as well. And FDA recommended also that to reach out to the MDSC. So it's in fully alignment with FDA as well.
Perfect.
If anyone who wants to join that later on, once we get more clarity, of course, we will share it here, and then we can see who wants to join and move the needle there.
No, thanks for driving that. And yeah, if you could share those dates, times, and invites with Ulla, we can disseminate it through, you know, our channel here. That would be great. Anyone attending AACR in New Orleans? We should have frequent PIcc representatives at all meetings.
Do I see a thumbs up from Keith? So the American Association for Cancer Research Conference, and I will be there, and I'm happy to have a mini meetup.
It would be great. I think that's one very elegant way to get the word out, you know, because I think many of the AACR researchers are in that space where, you know, some of the data that are being generated would have some regulatory implications. So they may not be aware that they could get, you know, additional input from others that are interested in the same topic. I think especially multiplexed imaging is going to be a big topic on AACR this year, looking at the abstracts.
This is Keith. I work at Ultiview. We're sponsoring a biomarker symposium. I think it's a day-long symposium ahead of AACR on the 8th. So I believe that's free for registration. But actually, I'm most excited about going to Preservation Hall and hearing some classic jazz.
I'm from New Orleans, and I am happy to direct you to all of the local haunts.
Awesome.
See the power of the collaborative community right there. No, I love it. This is fantastic. So Keith, can you provide that webinar date and time if that's available? Because then we could.
I'll look for it. I know we just finalized the program, and I think it's been advertised, but I'll try to do that if we're on for a few more minutes.
Perfect.
I'm gonna plug my poster.
Of course, you should share it.
Has to be made, but anyway.
AACR is very, very competitive, but it's a very good meeting. All right, other topics. I don't think so. Great. Thank you all for joining. Hope to see you next week in a pre-analytics session to carve out a very, very good and competitive project so we can, move the field forward. And if not, see you March 30th.